WikiLeaks has no case to answer. In the US, our publishing is protected by the First Amendment, as has been repeatedly demonstrated by a wide variety of constitutional law professors in that country. In January 2001, the US Secretary of the Treasury, Timothy C. Geithner, announced publicly a finding of no grounds to blacklist WikiLeaks. There are no judgments or even charges against WikiLeaks or its staff anywhere in the world for any matter. The most powerful players in the banking industry have shown themselves to be a politicized arm of right-wing Washington. This collusion has occurred outside of any judicial or administrative process. The reach of these companies is global and violates the most basic principles of sovereignty. In Europe, Visa and MasterCard together control 95 In Europe, Visa and MasterCard together control 97% of the card payment market. Alternatives have been aggressively opposed by Visa and US embassies, according to cables released by WikiLeaks. The European Central Bank announced plans in 2008 to introduce a European card payment system. A similar 2010 proposal in Russia, together with a bill banning individualized Visa transaction records from being exfiltrated to the United States, was met by intervention of the US ambassador and embassy in Moscow. The bill was not passed. Visa calls itself the world's largest currency, but every transaction is controlled by the Visa Corporation and the groups that are able to influence it politically. Visa is a national security problem and a threat to state sovereignty. No state, individual, or organization has economic autonomy or privacy if they rely on Visa. Visa is able to provide significant intelligence not only on individual behavior and economic relationships, but on the entire microeconomy and population movement of most developed nations. The Bank of America is one of the Bank of America is one of the principal promoters of the WikiLeaks financial blockade. It is also the creator of Visa, which until 1976 was called Bank of Americard. In February this year, it was revealed that the Bank of America had commissioned, through its Washington lawyers, Hunton and Williams, a consortium of 3 US intelligence contractors, including the disgraced firm H.B. Gary, to propose a systematic $2 million a month multi-pronged attack to hack and smear WikiLeaks. H.B. Gary was referred to the bank's Washington lawyers by contacts within the US Department of Justice. The authenticated correspondence of this conspiracy to smear and destroy WikiLeaks, which includes plans to target journalists and lawyers supporting this organization, were released to the public. An extract of the proposal to sabotage WikiLeaks can be found on page 16 of Plan 6. The entire details are publicly available on WikiLeaks and a number of other sites such as salon.com. But the proposal includes create concern over the security of WikiLeaks infrastructure, create exposure stories. If the process is believed not to be secure, they are done. Cyber attacks, which are unlawful in the United States, against the infrastructure to get data and documents on the submitters to WikiLeaks, its sources. This would kill the project since the servers are now in Sweden and France. Putting a team together to get access is more straightforward. i.e. hinting at the legal difficulties of hacking media organizations within the United States from the United States. Media campaign to push the radical and reckless nature of WikiLeaks activities, sustained pressure, does nothing for the fanatics but creates concern and doubt among moderates. That is the plan by Washington intelligence companies for the Bank of America. In order to ensure our future survival, WikiLeaks is now forced to temporarily in order to ensure our future survival, WikiLeaks is now forced to temporarily suspend all publishing operations in order to direct all our resources into fighting the blockade and raising funds. We have commenced pre-litigation action against the blockade in Iceland, Denmark, the UK, Brussels, the United States, and Australia. We have lodged an antitrust complaint at the European Commission and expect a decision by mid-November as to whether the European Competition Authority will open a full investigation into the wrongdoing of Visa and MasterCard and other financial companies. In April, Reuters commissioned a report looking at support for WikiLeaks over 24 nations. 18,829 adults were surveyed. The poll has a margin of error of 3.1%. 75% supported our bid to make public secret government or corporate documents. In other words, over 24 nations, including India, the United States, Russia, Europe, and Australia, and Latin America, 75% of the population support our activities. And yet, a handful of US finance companies have been able to successfully block 95% of the worldwide support for WikiLeaks. These few companies cannot be permitted to arbitrarily decide how the whole world votes with its wallet.
I just want to add a few words about the flow of revenues since the beginning of last year, as you can see on this chart here. There are a few peaks in the flow of donations to us, which was until November last year, primarily through bank transfer and through PayPal. You can see in April that there's a peak when we started, when we published the collateral murder video on April 5th. Through that month, there was a peak in donations. Again, at the end of July, the Afghan War Diary was released, and you can see that reflected in the numbers in August. And then again in October 23rd, the Iraq Warlock project was released. And then in December, end of November to be exact, the Cablegate project and the support took off dramatically, and then we had just opened the possibility a few weeks earlier to donate through credit cards. It's interesting to note, though, that it was not just as a result of our publication that we were getting support from the general public, because at the beginning of last year, in January, February, March, Throughout most of that time, the website was down, and we were in a fundraising drive at that time. Overall, last year, the average donation each month exceeded 100,000 euros. As of this year, until August, the average donations to Wikileaks have been between 6,000 and 7,000 euros. So it is fair to say that it is almost a conservative estimate that we have lost directly 95% of our donations as a result of the banking blockade, which we were hit by at the end of last year. Now, what could we have received in donations if this had continued upwards? We can only speculate, but if you think that about the last 24 hours before the credit card companies closed the gateways, we received more than 130,000 euros in the last 24 hours before the closing of the credit card gateways. If you multiply that by the 300 days plus that have passed since that date, you have a number that is between 40 and 50 million euros. That gives you an indication of the support that we have been deprived of in this time by this illegal and unlawful blockade. Now, Julia mentioned what action we will take to fight this blockade. We cannot go into details on how it will be fought in different jurisdictions. We are looking into, and our lawyers are looking into the ways, and there will be different approaches. The first case will be brought within a few weeks in Denmark on the cases of breaches of merchant law in that country, because the processing company that was contracted by Visa and MasterCard, Teller, was forced to close down their operation of the processing to us, despite the fact, as Julian mentioned, that they found on December 30th last year and reported that they found no illegality in the donation and the transfer to Wikileaks, nothing in contravening Danish or Icelandic laws, and indeed nothing that was in violation of Visa Europe's policy. But they were forced to close down despite these findings, and this is as the matter is at the moment. We will proceed with legal cases in Iceland, in the United States, in Australia, and here in the UK. The first action has been taken. That is the complaint with, along with our IT partner Datacell that handled our credit card processing, a complaint to the European Commission. This was handed in July, and as a framework, the European Commission takes 4 months to decide whether to open up a formal investigation. That would be a big victory if they do, and I would be very surprised if they don't. The 4 months are up in mid-November, November 12th, and we hope that by that time we will have a decision out of Brussels on the action taken by the DG4, the department at the Commission that handles antitrust violations. The Commission has the power to impose an injunction. It's very rare. They could force the credit card companies to open up the gateways pending the result of their investigation. According to our lawyers, it is very rare that this step is taken, but I think it would be appropriate in this instance, as the violation is so blatant and so obvious. Now, I'll be ready to answer